live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski. Hold on. Nothing. That's the problem. You keep it talking. No. Joe's listening. He's like, gosh darn it, guys. Come on, get it together. Which is the correct answer. No, it's they can hear me. Keep it talking.
I'm talking. Hopefully somebody's listening.
There we go.
Good?
Yes.
Good. Here I am. Am I here? There we are.
You're there.
Back and better than ever. Sleepless with Steve, live and in living color on this Wednesday evening. As you can tell, we are running a two-man ship today. Just Dominic and myself. First of two shows, since we're all off next week, that are going to be sans Joe Viso, unfortunately. He's got a nice confluence of events between some school work that he needs to catch up on and whatnot. So obviously movies have to take, unfortunately, a back seat. But he will return in 2 weeks. 3 weeks from today. Time's a construct. 3 weeks from today, he'll be back to review Joyride with us. That comes out in early July, so he will be back for that. There's no show next week for the record because with Joe being off, I'm on vacation. Dom ain't feeling hosting this thing by himself. So we're taking another week. We're taking a week off next week for call it our summer break, and then the following week, first week of July, we are reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. That comes out June 30th. So just a nice little look for the next month or so of Sleepless with Steve, what it's going to look like. You're stuck with the two of us tonight, though, and we are going to review The Flash. Going to be a Flash dominant show today. It's the one thing it dominates because it didn't dominate the box office this weekend. That leads into our news story. We're going to talk about if a superhero movie and an animated movie can't succeed at the box office, then what the hell is the future of movies? The Flash and Pixar's Elemental both bombed, and almost that sounds like an understatement. Both bombed at the box office this weekend. Incredibly disappointing showings for both. I really will save this for the end, or for the second half of the show. I do not know where the hell Pixar goes from here. It's going to be sequel city coming up now for Pixar. I think this could very well wind up being one of the last Pixar originals we see for a very, very long time. This thing did terribly. This thing did worse than Onward, and Onward was impacted by the pandemic, for Christ's sake. You know, and it's a better movie, too. It's a better movie, Elemental. That's what really sucks. I can understand. Like, I didn't shed any tears over Lightyear. Lightyear was a stupid idea and a stupid movie. Like, Elemental, I'm kind of crushed for that this thing isn't doing well. And I was, I think all of us kind of had relatively low expectations for it, given the first reviews that were out.
Yeah.
But it's honestly a pretty good movie. It's not perfect. And somebody brought up online and had to ruin it for me on Twitter that it's like Cars. Like the more you start asking questions, it falls apart. Like, why do the fire elements wear pants? And why are the air elements made out of clouds if clouds are water? Which brings me up one last irrelevant point before we segue into the show. I was on an Elemental thread on Twitter this weekend, you can tell, and one film critic chimed in, and he's like, "I'll never forget at the Cars premiere, I pissed off John Lasseter something fierce because I raised my hand and I asked him. I said, forget the obvious question of how cars reproduce." He goes, "There's a scene in the movie where there's a plane and the plane has steps to board. Who are those steps for?" It's like, as soon as you start bringing logic into these movies, the whole thing falls apart. But I almost wish we were kind of reviewing Elemental, truth be told. I actually almost texted you. I thought about it on Saturday after I saw the
Switch to Elemental?
No, not even that. We could have. I honestly, because I had more to say, I honestly was going to text you and ask you if you wanted to pull an audible and switch and talk about The Blackening.
Oh, no. That would have been if I was gone and Joe was here, you could have done that. I did not watch The Blackening.
I think you would have brought a lot of good discourse to that movie. I truly do.
Okay, if we had done that, yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very well put together horror comedy in all aspects, and I thought it was very meaty too, how you could discuss it as well. I thought it was a very good movie. But anyway, we're talking about The Flash. So after I just brought up two really good movies, we're talking about The Flash, which is not a terrible movie, I might add.
It's not. We're not.
Movie.
We're not going to ground it into the dirt. We're really not.
Shit, you know what? Honestly, hot take plank over here. It might be my second at worst, third favorite DC movie. Which isn't high praise, I understand that. But, like, number one is easily James Gunn's Suicide Squad. That's the best of the bunch.
Yeah.
I mean, Birds of Prey and The Flash are kind of wrestling for, like, two in my mind. I mean, there hasn't been a lot great. There really hasn't been. Shazam was good but forgettable. Batman versus Superman sucked. Man of Steel sucked. Aquaman was whatever. But We'll get into the Flash a little bit more, I think, of the optics, because I think one of the main points I want to make is more about the box office performance, is more tied to that. But at any rate, probably the longest I went without asking you this. How are you, Dom?
I am doing okay. We're going to be taking a trip down, as we were talking in the green room earlier, taking a trip down to St. Louis to see our friend. We're going with some other friends, and we're going to have a good time down there to see Fall Out Boy. Which I'm not too. I am good on Fall Out Boy, but I'm not really a big fan. But it's really just more the vibes. This is pretty much our summer vacation, from starting now until like Sunday. So, which is about all you can afford in an adult life. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a road trip down to St. Louis. Of course, might take but one day we should take a train down there, because I think Chelsea took a train. She loves train rides.
Train's the best way. Train's the best way to travel.
Oh,
now, I've
dude.
never taken a cross country train trip. I haven't done no Murder on the Orient Express type shit. But I love traveling on the train. I love it. You can drink on the train. I love taking the Metro. I really do.
Yeah. 100%. And it's
the only thing about trains is, like, you got to know where you're going, because like with the different lines and the times and the departures and everything, if you don't know the route you're going, you're not going to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, you really got to do. It's like traveling on the L in Chicago. You got to figure it out beforehand.
You got to. It takes some logistics, but I've always, ever since I was a kid, I've always loved the train. There's no better feeling. I told back when we went to Windy City Live, the Chicago talk show, me and Dad, there was no better way calling out or cutting class or whatever at 8:30 in the morning, drinking two tall boys of beer on a Monday morning on the Metro. Nothing better, and people looking at us like, man, they got nothing to do today. I love the train. I love Union Station. I love everything about the train.
Yeah.
Have a fun trip, though. Yeah, we both got music in our lives this week. Me and my girlfriend, Catherine, we're going to see Three Doors Down.
Oh, yeah.
So we both got some music in our lives this weekend. We'll move forward, though. March on forward. We talk about The Flash now. This thing, quite frankly, really should have been an unmitigated disaster. And it's surprising in a way that it isn't. Like,
yeah.
Some of the shock of my, I might sound like it's almost unfair. Like, I'm surprised that this thing is good, but shit, this thing has cycled through 6 or 7 directors over the course of about 20 plus years. It was first conceptualized in the 80s. Like, they've been talking about a Flash movie, it feels like, since Christ lost his sandals. And it started and stopped so much. I said in my review, it started and stopped more than LA traffic, this thing. I feel like a Flash movie's been talked about my entire life, and it's finally here. And it's not an ignominious disaster. It's what sucks, though, and this is what I said to Catherine after the movie. I said, you know what sucks? Is I said, between Ezra Miller being such a jagoff and this thing, now with James Gunn at the helm of DC, this universe is getting rebooted. We're not going to get a sequel. No. We surely aren't now with how little this money this movie's making. But we were never going to get a sequel in the first place. Between Ezra Miller and the fact that they're rebooting the universe again, it's like it's almost like a Pyrrhic victory for DC that they finally got this Flash movie out. It's actually not half bad, and it's irrelevant. It's contributing to a universe that is dying, for the lack of a better term.
This is
Aquaman 2, and then that's it.
This is a swan song, right? No, the swan song is Aquaman. I think Aquaman 2 is going to be the swan song, right?
I thought, yeah, I think there might be another one, but I think it's Aquaman 2 is the finale of this thing. And then it's whatever gun. Oh, Blue Beetle. That's the other one.
Oh, you're right.
So at least the Flash is in Blue Beetle. At least that one,
Well,
you think the Flash did what badly in theaters. Wait for that one.
Blue
That one's gonna
Beetle,
tank.
they could do it. uh, Well, we'll see. I haven't read anything on this, but they
Blue
could
Beetle's
connect
gonna
it
make
to a new thing. It could be
Blue Beetle's gonna make the Green Lantern look like a fucking financial success. I promise you, that thing is not gonna do well at all. That was supposed to go to HBO Max.
Hmm.
And then Zaslav, high and mighty Zaslav over here was like, no, we got to put this thing in theaters, so we can lose more money. But
There you go.
but anyway, talking about the Flash here, I like a lot of this movie. I really do. There's some things about it that annoyed me. I'm not gonna lie. It's 2.5 hours. Sometimes feels like that long, but truth be told, I was texting Joe earlier because Joe and I were actually exchanging thoughts about this movie. We normally don't do that. We don't do that before the show. We don't. We really go in. I mean, if Joe sees it, these guys kind of have like the detriment, and if they stumble across my review on social media, then they know.
I
Which one
actually
I'm leaning.
try not to read your reviews until after. Yeah.
Yeah, because we like to go in cold. But since Joe wasn't going to be on the show, we were just texting about what we thought of it. And Joe and I were in lockstep in opinion on this movie for the most part. And both him and I agreed. I said, if this thing would have ended, and he's not terrible for the record, if this thing would have ended when Michael Keaton got introduced, I would have probably given it 3.5 out of 4 stars. I loved the first hour. The first hour is really good stuff. And it gets a little muddled in the beginning or in the middle. It gets a little muddled, and then it turns into your typical CGI sort of effects,
Smorgasbord.
chaos.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the middle of nowhere for an inexplicable reason. I don't know why the final battle's in the middle of nowhere, but to be that as it may, I will say, forget the cameo at the end that everybody's going to be talking about. Forget the cameo at the end. This thing actually nails its emotional beats too. I was really impressed by that. This thing honestly nails its emotional beats because the whole crux of the movie is Barry Allen, who's the Flash, winds up trying to go back in time to save the life of his mother, who was murdered, and his father's in prison for the murder, even though his father's innocent. And the whole idea is using the multiverse to going back and trying and preventing his mother's death. Well, obviously, there's no rink, you know what I mean? There's no, there's the butterfly effect, if you will, of going back to the multiverse. Barry's mistake is going back. Actually, his plan works until he realizes his younger self still exists. And now there's two Barry Allens coexisting in the same universe. So it's about finding a way to get back to his own timeline. And then you have, in this alternate reality multiverse, whatever, in this future, there's no Cyborg, there's no Wonder Woman, there's no real conventional heroes, and Batman is a haggard old Michael Keaton. And so there's nobody to stop General Zod, who's back in this thing. Michael Shannon probably got a decent check for reprising his role as General Zod.
Because for doing basically nothing except being in a CGI suit, which I do wonder if he was even in, or if he was literally just a head, because he could have been.
I love Michael Shannon could star in a Fruit Loops commercial, and I'd still say it was one of the greatest things ever.
He could have been what Marlon Brando was in like the first Superman movie, just literally a floating head, because it's in like a CGI dripped out, battle armor thing with like a translucent thing. But I don't know. That's beside the point.
Yeah, so Michael Shannon reprises his role as General Zod, which I'm not gonna lie, confused the shit out of me. During the trailer, I'm like, okay, why is Michael Keaton's Batman in this thing? Why is Zod alive again? You could almost tell that this thing was supposed to come out like probably shortly after Man of Steel, not 11 years later. But I'm still kind of aghast that this thing was as functional as it was. And we'll get into this in a minute. I thought Ezra Miller was very good. I thought he was very good in this. I thought they were very good in this movie. We will bloviate a little bit more about that in a few. I want to hear your thoughts, Dom. What did you make of The Flash?
If this movie was the worst of the DC films in this, from Man of Steel onward, if this was the worst of it, then it would have been on contention with anything Marvel doing on a commercial critical level. But unfortunately, this falls almost in like the top quartile of those lineups, and that's unfortunately saying something there. Really, it's a pretty damn solid outing for DC, but it does unfortunately have ironically enough, for the Flash, they are slow to pick up on the multiverse thing, which is the hot thing right now in every single superhero thing, every single franchise. I'm waiting for Dom Toretto to start doing some multiverse shit.
It's exhausting.
But strategically it makes sense. It's a fantastic play for any studio, corporation, brand, franchise, whatever, because you get to pull in some of the old shit from decades past, including like the old stuff if you have it, like the 80s, 70s, 60s stuff, and you can play around with that. It's tongue in cheek. Fans absolutely go ape shit for it, including, I'm sure they will for the Flash. I was neutral on it. I was like, whatever, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more. But really, it's just solid because everyone talks about Marvel fatigue, but really we are superhero fatigue. We're super anything fatigued at this point. The word superpowers is like an anathema to creativity, it feels like. And subconsciously, even for the audience, let alone for writers. But for The Flash, they honestly probably did the best that they could with this specific project. And I have to applaud that. Like working with it's you know how Bohemian Rhapsody got the Oscar for best editing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how could it possibly do so? Well, there is you'll never know why, but people have argued that, well, they won the Oscar because they were able to salvage so much with such a mess of a movie that, it's like, you know what? Kudos to you. You made a mountain out of a molehill. And you made an Everest out of a molehill, given what you had, And for that, we'll give you the Oscar. But I'm not saying this movie, the Flash should get any Oscar by chance. But just the fact that I went in with the absolute worst expectations and came out on the other side of it like going, huh. That's my onomatopoeia there. Huh. Yeah. Ezra Miller here, actually, I think this is the best performance he's given of anything I've seen him in.
For what it's worth.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know. I don't know how many Ezra Miller movies I've seen other than his Marvel.
We need to talk about Kevin. I know I've seen. I think he was in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. I have not seen any of those, but
I might. You know what? I might be wrong.
Seems
actually,
like
I don't think. You know what? I might be wrong on that.
Did this movie seem like it had seems like it was going to have a fixation on the band Chicago, and then it didn't? It like kind of did, but then didn't?
It flirted with it.
So the first song was If You Leave Me Now. Awesome song. In the very opening scene, it's like, oh, okay, you're setting the tone here, a little tongue-in-cheek, whatever. And then they go to 25 or 6 to 4 in the Michael Keaton introduction.
Great song.
Like, okay, and then I think they just don't do anything else. Like, they don't complete the trifecta. Which, like, you're really not going to do a song called Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is in a movie about time travel and the multiverse. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. It's, okay, cool, whatever. Which is my two introduction songs for my wedding.
Yep.
Were two Chicago songs.
They were?
And it was neither of them in this movie. Which was Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is was one, and then the other was Just You and Me. They couldn't. They don't need to do Just You and Me, but Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is? An incredible song, a great song about life and time and materialism and just going through life, and you don't do it in this whatever.
Side note about Chicago, random irrelevant side note about Chicago though. Has it ever pissed you off that, like, I love the song Saturday in the Park, but I always hated the line, I think it was the 4th of July. That's a pretty significant day. Like, you should remember that it was the 4th of July. I think it was the 4th of July.
Did you know that? Because I don't really have too much to say on The Flash. Did you know that the Italian part in Saturday in the Park is like singing Italian songs, it gotcha, and then he like starts doing supposedly Italian. It's just gibberish. He just makes up lyrics there.
That's not surprising.
And in sheet music, official sheet music of Saturday in the Park, the lyrics just say in brackets, like Italian, like Italian sounding ad lib or something like that, because it's not. He doesn't actually say anything. Additionally, in the song 25 or 64, do you know what that song is about? 25 or 64?
About no, but I do remember Googling, isn't it like the title of that song? Isn't it like saying 25 or like 26 minutes to 4 or something like that?
Yes, everyone,
it's a timing thing.
Yeah. This is a lesson in musical phrasing, so it's actually kind of on the song's fault. But like lyrically, the phrasing, it does sound like 25 or 6 to 4.
Or 6 to 4.
But it's actually about 25 minutes, as you said, 25 minutes or 26 minutes to 4 o'clock in the morning.
So 25 or 6 to 4. Like it's almost the way you say it, like 25 or 6 to 4.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's such a weird that like I feel like I'm still like one of the only people when people ask me like what time it is, I say like 20 to 10.
Yes.
Or like you're like 20 after 4.
I
feel
think
like
radio might have had something to do with that. I don't know exactly, but maybe.
it's also the way my dad tells time, so that
Same.
like people be like what time is it? If it's 10:15, I'll say quarter after 10. So like it's I have that like almost archaic sense of telling time, relaying time. I remember looking that up though because I love 25 or 6 to 4, and I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing here. It's like the Meatloaf song. I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that. Mm-hmm. Like but I won't do that suggests there's a singular thing you won't do.
Yeah.
Like instead of like what people said that it should be, I do anything for love, though I won't do that or something like that. Like it suggests, the phrasing suggests that there's like a singular thing that you will not do. And it's not the way the song intends it, if I remember correctly. Anyway, The Flash. Nice little sidebar.
Michael Keaton was pretty much the acting highlight for me. Not even acting highlight. Ezra Miller probably does take it because he is acting against himself, which is a fun trick. It's a fun Back to the Future trick, honestly, which they riff off as well. And he's doing well. Like, I can't deny it. In this singular project, the young him versus the more mature him, and how they play with that in the writing of how you bounce off of that and how you mature.
It's almost like one of those metaphors, given they're such a jagoff. Like it's almost one of those metaphors.
There's a line in here where he says, "And hey, don't forget about mental health." Meanwhile, Ezra Miller is like the most insane dude choking out people at Icelandic bars.
Oh, read about what they do. It's sickening.
My God.
It's sickening. Like it is nauseating. The one thing that was funny, and I brought this up to Catherine in the movie, the opening scene is terrific. Absolutely terrific. Of the Flash having to sprint all the way to Gotham City and save these infants that are falling like from 100 stories high of this high-rise hospital that just crumbles. Great sequence, great use of high speed and slow-mo, sometimes at the same time. Really great sequence. But I nudged Catherine in the middle of it, and I said, so unrealistic. Nobody let Ezra Miller near their children. I'm like, so unrealistic. But it's good. Like the opening, man, I was with this movie for longer than most superhero movies. I thought the opening scene was great. The scenes when he goes back in time and interacts with his mother at the grocery store, because
there's emotional beats here you don't find in like other Marvel or DC movies.
No, like I would argue this was like at least Guardians 3 being an outlier because that movie was very emotional at times. Some of the best emotional beats in a superhero movie in recent memory, excluding Guardians 3. I don't want to give away why the grocery store is such a central location for involving the Flash's mom, Barry Allen's mom. But man, both those sequences in the grocery store, especially that last one, It seems like everywhere I go, it seems like everywhere I go, I don't know if I notice it more or not. Everywhere I go, I see like a dead mother narrative now. And I'm like, okay, this one was pretty good. This one was pretty damn good. I'm like, Yeah, that hit me.
Yeah.
Last night in Soho did that too, for fun fact. But
Th- th- there are some solid scenes here that are a cut above what you by the standard and what this library, this Library of Alexandria of superhero movies that we've built up in just the past 2 decades alone. But unfortunately, a movie is, well, not unfortunately, but a movie is a sum of its parts, and it does lag in other parts, and it brings pretty much that average down.
we got
We've
time
got
before
like,
we got time before
yeah.
the break here. I'll ask you though, since I've been talking a lot. I'll ask you though, since we got a little bit of runway here. What's the but for you? What's one of the major criticisms you have?
The but has got to be the. It's such a basic bitch thing to say, like the CGI is bad, and I'm not gonna say it's bad, but it wasn't up to snuff. Do you feel that?
No, I agree. In some instances, especially when it gets at the end, I think you really notice it at the end. It
Yeah.
feels like it needed more polish. And I know Anthony Muschietti, the director, who was the man behind both the recent It movies, It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. Very solid director. He also did Mama with Jessica Chastain. Muschietti came out and said, and I think he was trying to throw a bone to the VFX artist by saying that, like, because this movie exists technically in the past, like, what is it, 2013 or so, like
Yeah.
this movie exists in the past, it's not, and it's a product of a multiverse, that it's not supposed to look as polished.
I think
and
that's an excuse. I think he's giving them an excuse. Yeah.
I think he's going to bat for the VFX people,
I
so
appreciate. I get it.
I'm not gonna point and laugh at that, but no, like, and it's happening a lot now with these superhero movies. They're churned out at such a volume rate that it feels like there has been a real degradation of quality in the realm of CGI. And you really notice it with shit like the multiverse now, where it's all computer. It's all digital. And everything, even like when Flash outruns the world and then winds up in this multiverse purgatorial space, like everything is digital. And that's when you notice it, is when the screen is flooded with it.
Yeah, and it's almost like we've said multiple times before. It's almost never the artist's fault. It's usually lack of skill. It's always a time crunch, a budget crunch.
You're not working on these movies if you're not talented.
Yeah, 100%. So it's usually something that, and with the production on this movie, it's insane. The fact that they did this well is a testament. But yeah, there was some interesting things they were doing with like legacy characters that was like, I don't even know if they're using deep fake technology, but it was kind of rushed there. Some of the infants in that opening scene, did they seem a little clay to you? A little plastic?
They did. No, they did. The infant. No, that scene was great, I think, on an action spectacle sense.
The
but
sequence.
Yeah, like when it slows down and like he's like grabbing the babies over here, like he's, I was trying to make a reference to a game, but I can't think of what game I'm trying to reference. When he's grabbing the infants from like thin air, like when it's slow and you get time to linger, they do not look human.
No,
they do not look human. They look very like doll-like.
Yeah, and like some of the Batman like action sequences where it's like, oh, okay, I know Michael Keaton isn't doing them, but it doesn't even feel like a stunt person is doing them. It feels like this is a CG model doing them. But so
Ben Affleck just looks terribly miserable in the scenes he's in.
Which is funny because I read that like those 5 minutes where he's talking to the Flash out of the suit. Apparently, Affleck was quoted as saying, "Yeah, this is the first time I've ever really understood the character." Which, if that's not a testament to just the mess that this DC thing is in this day and age, like holistically speaking, even beyond CG, although it does include that, and really much of the art direction, Zack Snyder's absence is felt here. And usually when you say that, that's a bad, it's like saying, it's like, oh man, we really miss Zack Snyder. On the opposite.
Nope.
This is better for it, bro.
I just said earlier to start the show, Suicide Squad, I would say Birds of Prey, excuse me, and The Flash are probably some of my favorite DC movies. What's the comment? Who's the missing link here?
Over Man of Steel, over Justice League, over.
I feel like Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, like they played two iconic characters in Superman and Batman. I feel like their iterations of the characters 10, 15. I feel like nobody talks about them now really. I think they leave very little impact, and
I,
I think down the road they're not going to be remembered very well.
the
Not in
consensus,
terms of them being bad, but in terms of them just being
yes.
terribly bland. Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice should have been a generationally epic movie.
Mm-hmm.
Should have been a generationally epic film, and it was shit. And it was totally forgettable, totally forgettable, unremarkable. And Henry Cavill, I still don't think knows how to emote.
Yeah, I think the consensus is that the actors themselves weren't the worst. It's not really their fault.
No,
It's more so, yeah, it's the writing.
the planning.
I don't want to like pound Snyder into the dirt, but the buck has to stop somewhere, and I think it does stop with him. And I am worried. Speaking beyond the movie now, which I'm glad to do at any moment. I am concerned about James Gunn's handling of DC. Not so much that he's going to do a bad job. I'm worried that he's going to Guardians the whole thing. I'm worried he's going to Suicide Squad the whole thing. And like, Suicide Squad has the essence of Guardians to the Galaxy to it, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. It's that kind of style. And also James friggin' Gunn is directing him, you know. But I am curious to see how they treat a Man of Steel movie, right? The Flash kind of runs in between that because Ezra Miller's interpretation of Barry Allen kind of straddles the in-between of like fun, quirky, goofy, and then can also be super serious at the same time, right? But for something that is supposed to be more straight, something that's supposed to be straighter, like a Superman movie or a Batman movie, you know, in this specific DC connected universe, what is the approach there? I don't even know. I don't even think James Gunn is going to direct those. If he's smart, he'll pick someone he can trust to helm those movies.
No, I think he's an overseer.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what direction do you take from there to not make it too maudlin, too over dramatic, like those Snyder movies unfortunately were? And it's like, is there even a room to do? Are we only going to get like Joker movies? By that I mean specifically the Lady Gaga, Joaquin Phoenix interpretations, where it's like one-offs. I've been saying this since we were in college, which is like just switch to like Elseworlds, switch to singular stories, let it cool off for a half a generation, and just make your money there.
Look what happened. It's not a superhero franchise, but I keep bringing it up, though, and we'll cut to break here in a minute. But like the Dark Universe, the failed Dark Universe, which always seems to come up on the show. Universal tried it with The Mummy and Tom Cruise. Catastrophic failure financially, didn't make any money, and look what they did.
What year was that, man? What year was that? That was like 2015,
14, I want to say.
And we're still talking about it. We're still talking about it a decade later. They still haven't got their shit together.
But no, here's what they did. They actually did kind of get their shit together though, because you know what they did? They said like instead of trying to make this an interconnected monster universe, Leigh Whannell, one of the co-creators of Saw, you take the Invisible Man. I can't think of the director's name. You take Renfield. Like, make it a singular story, and they've done pretty well.
Oh, the dark, like the Universal,
the Universal
yes.
monster movie.
DC,
yeah.
not so much.
Yeah, like let's stop planning for the fifth movie when the Phantom of the Opera like has a fist fight with Frankenstein. Let's make a singular movie. Like let's make singular movies.
I don't think the Phantom is even a Universal monster. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. The Phantom was a Hammer horror movie. Was a Hammer horror movie. We'll cut to break here really quick. We'll be back to talk more about The Flash tonight. Don't go anywhere. This is Sleepless with Steve. We are back, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. Dom, is my audio working?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Just want to make sure. We are talking about The Flash, kind of getting into criticisms and such like that, kind of bloviating as well as what James Gunn's going to do with the universe now that he's one of the overseers in the series. But continuing on, though, like, one of my main criticisms with this movie is that this movie is very fan service heavy. It very much is. And that would be fine because I don't think it handicaps the movie to a point where it becomes a nuisance. But I do think, though, and maybe this isn't so much the fault of the movie as it was with the marketing, because there was the element of trying to get butts in seats. But the biggest surprise of this thing, of Michael Keaton's return as Batman, that would have been an awesome surprise if it wasn't in the damn trailer.
It's hard to say.
Supergirl, too. So Sasha Calle as Supergirl, too, was in the trailer. So there's no real element of surprise here with this thing that there would be. Like, I mean, because they had to market it. It's trying to be a launch pad for something else. They had to market it in a way. I don't think Keaton's bad here. I really don't. But the Easter eggs here, they're only special until they're revealed. That's really what the crux of this is.
I think it's a testament to how, I keep saying a testament today, that's my word of the day, but it's an example of how they had little faith in this thing, because, and also it might be Ezra Miller problems, because, okay, Ezra Miller is like an anathema now to the world, so let's not put him I mean, he has to be in marketing, of course, but we can't we have to push something out, so let's do Michael Keaton. Let's do I'm sorry.
Because he did no press for this. I mean, you can't really do press now with all the shows being off and the writer's strike happening and stuff, so that didn't help this thing either. But, like, you didn't feel comfortable putting Ezra Miller front and center with this thing.
I think it was all the actress who played Supergirl.
Sasha Calle.
Thank you. Sasha Calle. I think she was doing most of the press junkets, at least before the strike. Or at least I don't know. I don't know if
I think Ezra gave their first public comments on this thing like last Monday.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, you just couldn't market them. You couldn't like the name is tarnished. And outside of that, like, you really don't have any true bankable actors. Gal Gadot's in this movie for a sweet role.
But they let you know it. They let you know it with that theme.
Oh yeah, they do. Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, she collected probably $250,000 for this cameo alone. But yeah, like, I think the fan service here gets a little annoying at times too, and and it's pandering a little bit, which isn't the worst sin in the world, but I feel like just things get a little messy when Michael Keaton's Batman comes into play. And I was truly enjoying the stuff of, like, older Barry Allen trying to, like, break it through and, like, come to grips with his younger self being such a pain in the ass.
It can be fine with the fan servicey stuff, because you have clear examples in the superhero genre that do it well, and you don't mind at all. Yeah. Two of them are Spider-Man movies with No Way Home, and then the Spider-Verse movies. Man, they were shoving in references to Spider-Man everything in the latest Spider-Verse movie. But people, I still gave that a 4 out of 4 stars, and a lot of people were loving it because you still made a good movie around that. Now, as you said, they weren't banking on the fan service. That would have been a real hit to the movie if they were really doing that. But a spoiler, you probably heard about it already, but I'm going to spoil it to lessen the impact of it, but they bring a brief cameo of, like, Christopher Reeve's Superman and the actress who played Supergirl in the 70s. And they did have a fun one, although it wasn't executed very well, of the Nicolas Cage Superman, the proposed Nicolas Cage Superman movie as well. And I'm spoiling those because they do them, and they do not look good. They do not look good at all. So I'm gonna lessen the impact there for you. But it's unfortunately something else that drags it down here. They even have, like, an old Flash. They have, like, I think they have. There's like a 5-minute sequence, 5 minutes or less sequence, where they're, like, going ham on it. They're, like, going full on. Here's, like, our archival stuff, the greatest hits collection, and it doesn't really pan out to be. I was more so, like, chuckling at it. more than anything. Which
It's cute. That's about
it's
all
cute.
it is.
It is cute. But it's like supposed to be like the emotional high point, probably of the franchise as a whole. Not so much in like the interpersonal stuff, but just like just the brand. This is like the high point of the brand, kind of like how the big build-up sequence to the Avengers facing off against Thanos. That scene, the big one,
Yeah.
where people are coming out of the portals and shit. That's like the high point of the brand of the MCU. Here, maybe not so much in the Flash, but sorry, I'm like flashing between some screenshots here of the movie. Do you love how like every single shot of Ezra Miller in that suit in all these news articles are like the dumbest looking, like the most
I
like,
noticed that.
telephoto lens or whatever lens that is like the dumbest thing you can, like, he just looks so freaking stupid. Well deserved for that actor, but
You could caption like, no, it's true though. Like when I was trying to get photos of it for my review, I'm like, God, is there one photo of him that doesn't look like he's like, duh, like, like he's got like this stupid, like it's like, you know what I'm talking about? We're both thinking of the same thing. It's that image of him as a Flash, like looking up, like, like dumbfounded. Like, I noticed that. That's absolutely
which is
true.
so damn hilarious. And
One of the
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the criticisms. I don't want to get off this. Finish your point, actually. Finish your point. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying that, to the point, the fan service really just falls flat, and it doesn't help that it's a graphical thing, which is just more studio crunch time issues, and it's like the plot is also coming together here in a tangle of like the climax, and it's really, at least the first climax, and it really hurts. It just hurts to see, and that's like the big failing of this film. This scene is like the emotional high point of why this movie doesn't quite come together. Let's say that.
Very fair. Very fair. One of the criticisms, we'll get into final thoughts here. Shortly. One of the criticisms levied against this thing that I don't really agree with is that some people were saying, and it's probably not entirely, but there is obvious recency bias with Across the Spider-Verse being in theaters. But a lot of people are trying to say that they're trying to make the Flash into be like DC's Spider-Man. To that, I say, you know what? I don't hate that. I mean, the Flash ain't coming back. I'll tell you that much right now. Or he's not coming back for his own movie. But be that as it may, I don't hate that because at least he's got a friggin' personality, which is something that probably the biggest criticism I've personally levied at the DC universe since Man of Steel is that all these characters are so stoic. Everything is so dark and moody and miserable and just free of emotion. The only emotion is like despondence. I'm like, I kind of like that this guy can actually crack a joke every now and then and actually seems to be having some fun. Like, yeah, you can maybe say that the coffee shop scene in the beginning is a little bit corny, but you know what? I'd rather open with that than watching Ben Affleck's Batman sulking, which is like how half these movies are, is just fucking brooding all the time. Like I don't hate that. I like Barry Allen. I thought he was a fine character. There's worse characters I could have spent 2.5 hours with, and I have spent time with that amount of time with worse characters. I didn't mind that. I don't think it was too aggressive that they were trying to make him like Spider-Man, but he's also, too, in his defense, he's also the youngest character, too. He's the youngest of the heroes. He's the most inexperienced. He's in his mid-20s. He doesn't come from, like, this background. He's got tragedy in his background, like all great heroes, but he doesn't come from the same background as, like, Batman watching his parents being murdered and everything like that. Like, it makes sense that he's kind of still an impressionable kid. I didn't hate that.
He is probably the best part of this movie, the character of Barry Allen playing against himself. That gives him as much of a time travel cliche as that is. They use it effectively. They actually do the thing, and they explore his character with it. And it's because like he fights himself emotionally, maybe physically, at some points in this movie. And that's like that
I
it's the
understand the
most to work with.
trepidation.
It's the most to work with, and he does a good. Ezra Miller does a good job.
I
In this
think I think a
movie.
lot of people are being like trepidatious about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
it's
right.
not the person and everything, but I will say
He's a
this
piece of
though.
shit, but he's the best
Exactly.
part of this movie.
He is. He's good. They're good. They're very good. And I mean, you know how hard it is, and I've never done it. I can just assume it's hard. It can't be easy to like essentially for long stretches of the first hour of this movie. Ezra Miller is essentially talking to themselves.
Yeah, that's hard. That is hard.
That's hard. Like I always said, there's that episode of it is a weird connection, but I saw it recently, or I watched a clip of it recently. The Family Guy episode, Brian and Stewie, where they're locked in a bank vault, and it's like the complete departure from the Family Guy structure because there's no cutaways, and it's just and it's a dark episode. It's just Brian and Stewie locked in the bank vault.
Yeah.
It's a weird episode. It really is. It's ambitious, but it's weird. The reason I bring it up though is I said like it didn't dawn on me until like nearly the end of that episode watching it for the first time that I'm like, because it's just Brian and Stewie. They're the only two characters in the entire episode, and I'm like, this is really Seth MacFarlane talking to himself. That's what this whole episode is, and that's hard. That's very hard to maintain, especially when you're acting with somebody. I mean, in Ezra Miller's case, you're not really there. You know, like there's a level of difficulty there, and I think they handle it admirably. I think they're the best part of the movie. I don't think that's a stretch to say.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone deserves it, even in the crossfire of canceling. That shouldn't even be close to it because it is such a objectively best part of this movie. People are gonna say Michael Keaton is the best part of this movie, and he's there. He's not bad. He's actually doing pretty damn decent.
He's all right.
He's all right, and it's there. It's they're competent with it. Supergirl, Sasha Callie. Sorry, I didn't look. I don't have Wikipedia pulled up. Sasha Callie, she actually does a decent job with the ferocity and the anger of her characters. But I like that twist on Supergirl because usually it's very cheery. But it's she gets screwed over in the plot. She gets screwed over in the scripting. Unfortunately, I think they had to do reshoots of the ending of this movie, which means there's a lot of dangling threads here with like characters and whatnot.
She's definitely the Venom in Spider-Man 3. She gets that level of treatment where it's like she's an afterthought.
Yes.
And like the studio needed her in this damn thing. So like they had to find a place for her to no fault of her own. I think with more time on the screen, she actually could have left an impact.
I think so too, especially playing off of Barry Allen particularly because it seems like they were building to something there. But yeah, I don't know. Do you want to close out with this? Because I was going to
say, I have one other point, but it's more in line with the box office performance. So I'll hold that.
Okay.
This is a solid 2.5 out of 4 stars for me, which quite frankly is probably about 1.5 more than I thought it was going to get in all seriousness, because usually when movies are in development hell for years upon years and they've cycled through numerous writers and directors and screenplay changes and everything, I mean, cough, cough, Artemis Fowl, like it usually spells disaster. And the only times it really doesn't is if in a case like Martin Scorsese's Silence or Warren Beatty's Rules Don't Apply, where the movie might have been plagued by problems for 26 plus
but it
years.
Was his. It was theirs.
It was theirs.
Yeah.
It was theirs. And it didn't cycle through directors left and right.
I think Flamin' Hot was like that too, right? It cycled through various people, creatives, until it landed on
Eva
Longoria's lap.
Yeah, exactly. No offense to Eva Longoria. I can't imagine she was the first choice. And it's not because she's bad. It's just because she's unproven.
Yes.
But no, I think I don't think it lingered that long in development hell, but I do think it was a story that probably got passed around a little bit. But I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars, though. I enjoyed this thing. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than I thought I was going to, and it is legitimately impressive in some points. I just got kind of worn down by the aggressive fan service, and I think it does get muddled in the middle. But man, I'm still kind of in shock at like the way this movie really landed its emotional beats. I think that might be the biggest achievement of all of this thing, is that it really gets you invested emotionally. What say you? Final stars? Send us home on the Flash.
Yeah, when your expectations are through the dirt, it's especially like we were joking about this movie, talking shit on it. I was talking mad shit on it. Leading up to it, and I have to give it a 2.5 out of 4 stars as well. I don't think you can give it beyond that. Unless you are a true Flash fanboy, which, hey, kudos to you. I hope you found your moment in the sun. The glimmer of sun as a prisoner lying in the depths of high max security. But I hope you found something out of this, because actually this probably is the best we could have gotten in a post Snyder universe, where we are in DC is lost in the jungle in terms of its wider brand. There are absolute gold. In fact, Steve, I'll even refute the point you were saying about all these characters are dark and brooding. It's annoying as shit. Man, Robert Pattinson's Batman was doing that for 2 hours, but that was a fantastic film, which proves if you can do it well, if you have a cohesive story and a cohesive vision around it, and it's not being tossed around, at the will of various directors, or at the behest of various corporate boards trying to figure out how to place it like chess pieces, like a jigsaw puzzle, and then you'll get something out of here. Flash.
That was a shockingly good movie.
Yeah,
that was a shockingly great movie.
Yeah, the Flash is unfortunately caught in the crossfire of it, but they were able to sell. It's not a complete waste of your time, and it treks out at 2.5. If I'm being merciful, even 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Good stuff. Not going to be a huge time to bleed into Sleepless OT in terms. I don't think the story is going to warrant a ton of discussion, but I think it's worth mentioning. Man, what a dour week at the box office. Holy crap, man. This was supposed to be like summer's first official blast for the movie theater, and my God, man, it was nothing but shrapnel.
It's a false. I'll say, you go ahead and intro it, because I got a addendum to that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this was a disappointing weekend, to say the very least. The Flash opened with $55 million. It cost well over $200 to make and market. And Elemental just completely fell flat on its ass. Less than $30 million opening weekend. Yeah, this was pretty shocking. And shit, I joked to my boss today, or a couple days ago, when he asked me about it, what I thought of it. I told my boss, I was like, man, if a superhero movie and an animated movie cannot make money at the box office, what the hell is the hope for theaters? I said, if both of these, because both of these movies too had pretty low expectations given what they were, and they didn't even meet those in terms of the finances.
Oh.
They didn't even meet those. There was already cynical expectations on these things. And this, I don't think this is going to be a situation like Ant-Man. Ant-Man opened to $57 million and somehow made it over $500 million. Aquaman, and this is even the more staggering figure. I didn't know this. Aquaman opened to $67.5 million and globally made over $1 billion. That's damn impressive. I didn't think it was that successful, but here it was. I don't think this is going to be like that. I really don't. I don't think that, especially with Indiana Jones coming out, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny's coming out, that's going to take away people from this thing. It's a sad, believe me, I'm not crying crocodile tears either way, but it's disappointing for a movie that's actually pretty good. And there's a lot of different factors, I think, at play here. I also think that the movie didn't get the traditional promotional push it needed. It really didn't, with the writer's strike happening and just the lacking ability to really get out in front of the public and promote this thing. You have Ezra Miller, who couldn't do conventional promotion for this thing either, being the figure that he is. You know what I also think is an underrated factor in all this, though, is that, and it's going to be an awkward time. I think Aquaman 2 will do well. I think Blue Beetle's dead in the water. I think Blue Beetle's going to make the Flash look like a success.
Unless the Latino community can come together.
Yeah.
Like they did on the factory floor at Frito-Lay in I don't know, I'm joking. But yeah, I don't have high hopes for that as well. I'm sure it's going to be a victim of the culture wars at some point as well. There's a couple damning lines in this Variety article, but the numbers here are: unless its box office fortunes rebound, The Flash looked to fall more closely in line with Dwayne Johnson's $200 million budgeted Black Adam, which opened last year at $67 million and failed to reach $400 million globally.
I totally forgot about that thing.
Ultimately losing money in its theatrical run. Black Adam, yeah, everyone forgot about that movie. Shazam.
That thing was just too damn expensive.
Shazam 2
Yep.
A flop commercially, critically, flash in the pan. Pun unintended, but the numbers do not hit for DC here. DC is hurting big bad. I don't think this is going to affect James Gunn's tenure, because was that under him? I guess technically, but like the seeds for those three movies, Shazam, Black Adam, and Flash, was that under Gunn? I don't think so.
Well, this was to the point I was making
okay.
too. This is in DC is in such a transitory spot right now since Gunn and Peter Safran, that was the other guy, I couldn't think of his name. Since they took over, these movies are done and dusted.
Yeah.
So they have to be released, but they're going to reboot the entire universe. So like you have these movies like Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Black Adam. Gunn and Safran didn't greenlight these things. Gunn and Safran have been with DC just barely over a year. Okay. They didn't greenlight these things. They have to release them because they're done. And I think that's one of the negative points about this is I think like the smart comic book people know that these movies aren't contributing to the larger universe that's going to be in store for the next 5+ years. So these stories, like what did I just say about The Flash? I said, this was a pretty good movie. I thought about it multiple times watching this. Sucks there's not going to be a sequel to this one, actually, because on top of Ezra Miller, like they're going in a different direction. They're going to reboot the universe again. And it's going to, like, you're introducing these characters. I feel bad for Blue Beetle as much as I joke about it, because Blue Beetle, it's going to be introduced. Here's a character you're never going to see again, at least in this incarnation.
It's a waste of an origin story. Because
it's a waste.
I hate origin stories, at least ones that drag on for 40 minutes plus. You know, or at least that opening part. I'm so sick and done of them, and it just hurts to see, you know, a waste of probably good actors, good set pieces, and good what have you. But for I didn't mean to cut you off, Steve, but like to the larger point is that it's like any politician entering their first year of office. It's like, well, that was the fault of the previous administration. I'm so sorry, you know. And I think James Gunn's going to be just fine. But you're right.
This failure is not on him.
No,
at all. He inherited this.
I don't think anyone's gonna. I don't think the people that it really matters to is the corporate heads, and I don't even think they're gonna. I think they can see that as well. Speaking on that, but in terms of where they go next, DC is such a crazy. I love.
There's nothing official after Aquaman 2. Fun fact: there really isn't anything super concrete yet.
Wow.
There really isn't, because you go. I checked the extended universe Wikipedia page, and it's just a bunch of like potential projects.
Right.
There's nothing concrete after Aquaman.
It's not like Disney where it's like,
they're gonna probably go away for about a year now, and especially you can't shoot shit nowadays with the writers' strike and everything. We might not see like Gunn's inaugural DC movie for like a couple years.
It's funny with the writers' strike. That's gonna hit Marvel so bad because they're gonna have a gap down the line at some point, and it's going to hurt so bad for them. Meanwhile, DC can be like, we're still working on ourselves, so we're just going to take a longer break.
Self-care.
We're gonna let these cook in the oven. That way we can rebuild our quality and our brand. That actually works in their favor, that specific lane. But DC is such a crazy situation of extremes, and Marvel is not. And I love comparing those two studios all the time, because how can you not? But with Marvel, that they are so stuck in their ways. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they are just right down the middle. You know, they're like the New England Patriots on their 20-year run, where it's like, yeah, we can get our Super Bowls, but we also have these issues as well with like our image or whatever and all that stuff. We don't care. We're going to do this for 20 years plus. DC is just flinging around where it's like, hey, we can win Oscars with like Joker and shit. And we can make critically acclaimed movies like with Robert Pattinson's I like to say as if he directed it, but you know what I mean. The Robert Pattinson Batmans. Yeah, thank you. And then fling over here with like Aquaman and Wonder Woman 1984. And it's like, Jesus Christ, what a palette of extremes. Sweetest of the sweet and sourest of the sours. What a crazy... You could make multiple The documentary on Marvel is going to be boring as shit compared to the documentary that's meant on the DC cinematic universe. It's crazy.
Before we sign off, though, I got to mention Gotta mention Elemental. This movie deserved better. This movie deserves so much
Did it?
better. I think so. I think it's a pretty good
What
movie.
would you say? 30-second review. What would you say to the accusations that it's too much like Zootopia, too much like Inside Out, in that, oh, you're personifying all these intangible or like these elements and all the cliches there. What do you have to say to that?
Fair criticisms. Fair criticisms. I don't think they really inhibit the movie a ton because the movie is ultimately a well-told story. It's it's very
Okay.
linear. And the thing about Elemental and why it's good, not great. I'm not saying it's great.
Right,
It's
right, right.
good, not great because it doesn't have that second Pixar gear that like makes it like very specific or very like heartwarming on a more cerebral personal level. It doesn't have that. It doesn't
Right.
have that. It's just a well-told story, gorgeously animated. You wind up really getting invested, at least I did, in the two main characters, the kind of star-crossed lovers, the water element and the fire element. You wind up getting invested in their stories. And I think particularly too, I do think while it might not be as culturally specific maybe as other or like just specific and narratively speaking as other Pixar movies, I do think this story will resonate particularly with first generation Americans, like this like the children of immigrants.
Really?
I think it absolutely has that angle to it because the fire elements immigrate to Element City in the opening moments, and then they have
Oh,
their daughter, and then they run
that's
this
their
they
thing.
run they want
Okay.
they run this like fire-based convenience store. And the other thing too, Elemental, like
A little on the nose there.
I would have hated to pitch this movie because it's like it sounds stupid when you try to explain it, but it works. It's the power of animation. It works. Like it sounds stupid trying to explain this damn thing, especially when the fire element, she's a girl, her name is Ember, and the water element's name is Wade. Like it's very on the nose and kind of stupid, but it works. And then there are I will admit there are some very funny puns in this movie. Like they run this like convenience store. It's called like the Fireplace, I think it's called. The
Sure.
family of the fire element. And they got shirts that say like kiss me, I'm firish. I
Oh God.
like it was cute. I thought it was cute. I'm like, sue me. I don't know why the water elements have to live in houses when they can literally like swim and live in water. There's a lot of unexplained stuff, and you
It's
really
car.
don't
Yeah,
get
you're right. It was like what you were saying earlier.
it's
Cars
cars, yeah.
logic.
Well, as soon as you bring logic to it, it really falls apart. But it's gorgeous, and I think the story is really. I was shocked by how much I wound up really growing to love the characters. I think the ironic part is that Elemental is really good, and the Up short that plays before it sucks.
Really?
It sucks. It's terrible. It takes everything that was great about Up and its emotional subtlety and reduces it to like slapstick. It's really bad. It's called Carl's Date. It's really bad. Shockingly bad, actually. I almost forgot the damn thing happened
They
by
were
the end of
putting out
Elemental.
posters for that in movie theaters.
It sucked. It really sucked. It was the best part about it was like 7 minutes long, but but man, Pixar is screwed. Pixar's really right now, I think, reaping what they sowed when they released those movies on Disney Plus for free. When they
Yeah.
were like Onward was a special case that did get a couple week theatrical run before theaters closed, but then you dropped Luca and Soul, two great films, onto Disney Plus, and then
So.
you condition the audience, then the family audience, who it's not cheap for them to go to the theater. You condition them to expect their movies on Disney Plus, and I bet you right now, Dominic, I bet you right now, Elemental will be on Disney Plus before the end of July.
Isn't it sad that like a studio like that, Pixar, of such high regard, that their worst films are still like solid, are still like good even.
I contend Pixar's only made two crappy movies.
Right, exactly.
And
But
I'm kinder to the Cars series than most, but I would say outside of The Good Dinosaur, and fun fact, the director of Elemental directed The Good Dinosaur. This was a
oof.
good rebound. The Good Dinosaur and then Lightyear. Those are the crappiest Pixar movies. And you know what? Honestly, every studio gets a mulligan. Like Pixar's batting average is still sublime.
Yeah,
But it's just
exactly. And it's like
but the thing is,
they're gonna get ground into the dirt probably commercially for these decisions in the past couple years. And it's like, there's a lot of injustices in this world. that are greater than that. But this is still kind of one of them where it's like, oh, geez, come on, really?
But yeah, it's disappointing though because it is a good movie. But like, that's the problem with Pixar though, is that Pixar, and not so much recently, they haven't had like, I think Soul is probably their last great movie, and I loved Luca. I think I was higher on Luca than most people. I love that story. But the thing is though, is that like whenever a Pixar movie is good, it feels disappointing. It feels, at least in some modicum, disappointing because of the high standards they set for themselves. But now what you're going to get now, and it sucks, but you don't have to go very far. Look at the movies that did really well this year, kid movies. Super Mario Brothers movie made over $1 billion. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is making gobs of money. We're getting an Inside Out sequel here pretty soon. We're going to probably get Toy Story 5. We're going to probably get... I was joking. We're going to probably get Monsters Grad School. We're going to be getting probably a shitload of sequels now because that's the only thing people want to see. And it's disappointing for a movie like this. I'm not saying Elemental's the most original thing in the world, but it's definitely solid. It's a solid, I would say tier 3 Pixar. It's funny, our mutual friend Olivia, or Joe's mutual friend and mine, Olivia, years ago, her and I did an exercise of how we would tier the Pixar movies. And I broke them up into 4 tiers. Like, 1 is outstanding, 2 is great, 3 is good but flawed, and 4 is terrible. And mediocre to terrible. I would put this tier 3 Elemental. It's good, it's flawed, forgivably flawed, but good. I would put it on the same plane as like Toy Story 4 for one. I would do Toy Story 4, Monsters University stuff. I would put it on that plane, and I would put Finding Nemo there. But I'm also not as high on Finding Nemo as everybody else is.
Okay, fair enough.
Finding Dory was pretty good too. I liked Finding Dory more than Finding Nemo, and I promise I'm not just trying to piss off the internet. I liked Finding Dory more than I liked Finding Nemo.
I just want to see Monsters Grad School now. I just want to see them half working a job and half at school. I just want to see that now.
Yeah, and then there's gonna be like Monsters non-traditional students,
Doctorate.
Monsters night school, Monsters GED. Like, oh yeah, I mean. Good Lord. Monsters Juvenile Detention Center.
Oh my God. Hey, I'm
going to have fun with this.
That's your R-rated pick. That's the first R-rated Pixar.
The 2 projects I really want to do. Monsters Juvenile Detention Center and an episode of Arthur where they kill Muffy off. Those are my 2 dream projects. Those are my 2 dream projects. At any rate, though, what a great show. Fun show. I'm going to miss you guys next week. For sure. We're off next week. No Sleepless with Steve next week, unfortunately. We'll be back, though, on whatever, what is that, the 5th of July. That's the 5th of July.
2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks. We'll be back the 5th of July with a review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. That's coming up. Joe will be absent for that review as well, unfortunately, but he will be back he's planning to be back July 12th for our review of Joyride. Written by the writer of Family Guy with the name that takes up the whole screen. Cherry Chiva Prapadumrog. I think that's how you say her name. Anyway,
awesome.
We will be back in 2 weeks with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Looking forward to it. In the meantime, it's the first day of summer. Get out and enjoy yourself. Not me. I'm staying in the air conditioning. Until then, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Me and the gruesome twosome over here, Dominic Guanzon. For Dominic Guanzon and the unseen Joe Viso and yours